Black billionaire poses as janitor in his hotel, fires entire staff after what he sees. The only thing they noticed was the squeaky wheel. Not the man behind it. Not the mop. Not the navy blue coveralls marked Tyrone. Just the sharp screech of plastic wheels dragging across the polished marble floor of the Orion Grand, a five-star hotel in downtown Atlanta, home to politicians, celebrities, and CEOs. Tyrone Walker kept his eyes low. The cart moved at a slow, steady rhythm as he passed by the gleaming glass walls of the lobby bar, where guests sipped $80 cocktails and discussed mergers like they were weather forecasts. A security guard gave him a half glance, then looked away. The front desk clerk didn't acknowledge him at all. He was invisible. And that was exactly what he wanted. 3 weeks earlier, Tyrone had walked into this hotel wearing a $1,000 tailored suit and been treated like a problem. He hadn't revealed who he was then. He didn't need to. That day, he'd watched a black couple be denied check-in for missing documentation, while a white influencer was given an upgrade without showing ID. He hadn't said a word. He just watched, and he made a decision. Tyrone Walker was worth $4.3 billion. He had built an empire in tech infrastructure, expanded into real estate, and quietly acquired a portfolio of hotels across the country, including this one. But when the complaints about staff behavior at the Orion Grand reached his desk, racial profiling, class discrimination, staff cover-ups, he didn't send lawyers or HR reps. He shaved his beard, swapped his Rolex for a Timex, and came back through the service entrance with a mop. He'd been undercover for 12 days now, and each day chipped away at the illusion of luxury he once admired. As he passed the front desk, he caught a whiff of vanilla latte. Kyle, the front desk lead, leaned against the counter, scrolling through Instagram while two guests waited. One was a black woman in a plain black dress, wheeling a suitcase. The other, a young white man with ski sunglasses hanging from his shirt, smirked impatiently. Kyle called the white guy up first. Tyrone paused just long enough to catch the moment. He moved toward the base of the front stairs, where a team of valets stood chatting in hushed tones. One of them, Noah, nudged the other with a chuckle. "Yo, janitor's back. Must have missed the slop bucket." They laughed. Tyrone didn't flinch. Inside, though, he clocked every detail, every word. He moved toward the service elevator. A Latino bellhop named Luis nodded at him respectfully. Tyrone returned the nod. Luis was one of the few who didn't talk down to the staff, or the guests who weren't dripping in diamonds. Tyrone had watched him offer his own bottled water to a homeless woman sitting outside the hotel last week. No one else even saw her. The elevator opened to the 9th floor, and Tyrone pushed his cart down the hallway. Room 914 had filed a plumbing complaint, but that wasn't why he was here. He wanted to observe housekeeping, check if corners were being cut. As he stepped past room 92, he heard raised voices behind the door. "No, ma'am," someone said, clearly irritated. "Like I said, early checkout means you're charged for a full day." "I wasn't told that. The website said..." "That's not my problem, is it?" Tyrone kept walking. Room 914's door was slightly ajar. Inside, a housekeeping supervisor named Denise balked at a younger maid, arms crossed. "You call that folded?" Denise snapped. "What is this, amateur hour?" "I'm sorry, Miss Denise, I thought..." "You're not paid to think, Marla. You're paid to make this place look like money." Tyrone's presence startled them both. Denise scoffed. "What are you doing here?" "This floor was already cleaned." "Got a call about a sink backup," Tyrone said, voice low, neutral. "Then fix it, and don't get in our way," she said, brushing past him. Tyrone watched her go. Inside the room, the bed had indeed been made, but poorly. More concerning, however, was the minibar. Several items had clearly been used and restocked without sanitation. The sheets hadn't been changed either, lipstick prints on the pillowcase, a crumpled food receipt under the mattress. He pulled out his phone and snapped a few discreet pictures. There was a button camera in his shirt collar capturing video too. Just as he stepped into the hallway again, a woman turned the corner and nearly ran into him. "Oh, I'm so sorry," she said, catching her balance. She had deep brown skin, tightly coiled hair in a neat bun, and tired eyes behind clear-framed glasses. A non-profit t-shirt peeked out from her gray hoodie. She dragged a suitcase behind her, wheels rattling. "Room 917, she said, offering a weak smile. "I think I'm lost." Tyrone returned the smile. "Happens. Elevator's that way." "Thanks," she said, then paused. "You work here, right?" He nodded. She hesitated, then blurted, "Do they treat everyone like this, or is it just me?" He tilted his head. "What happened?" She laughed bitterly. "They lost my reservation. Said it was a system glitch, then charged me double to stay anyway. And when I asked for an iron this morning, the guy at the desk told me I should have packed wrinkle-free." Tyrone's chest tightened. "What's your name?" "Maya," she said. "Maya Reynolds. I'm here from D.C. for a fundraiser. I was hoping to get one night of rest, but..." She trailed off. He didn't say much. Just nodded slowly. "You didn't deserve that." Maya's expression softened. "Thanks. That means more than you know." She disappeared down the hallway. Tyrone stood still for a moment. The fluorescent light buzzed faintly overhead. He could still hear Denise's voice echoing in his head. Kyle's laugh, Maya's words. He exhaled slowly, then reached into his pocket and dialed. A woman picked up on the second ring. "Camilla." "It's me," he said. "You sound done." "I'm close. Start compiling the files. I want every report, every security log, every recorded complaint." Time stamped and backed up. "Is this for legal?" "No," he said. "It's for justice." Camilla was quiet for a beat. "Understood." "You ready to move?" "Soon, but not before I know exactly who I'm firing." He hung up, then looked down at the mop in his hand. 15 years ago, he'd held one just like it to pay his way through college, cleaning dorm halls while attending night classes. Now, here he was again. But this time, the mop wasn't just a tool. It was camouflage. A shield, a weapon, and the people who had laughed at him. They were about to find out who they'd really been mocking. Tyrone pushed his cart toward the stairs, each step echoing like a countdown. They saw a janitor. But what he saw would cost them everything. Tyrone King showed up earlier than usual. The hotel lobby was still wrapped in quiet shadows, soft golden light spilling from the chandeliers, not yet buzzing with wealthy guests or bellhops moving luggage. But the tension, that was already in the walls. He stepped into the service hallway and made his way toward the break room. No cameras in there, just bad lighting, peeling paint, and a coffee pot that hadn't been cleaned since the Obama administration. Inside, Kyle from the front desk lounged with his feet up, laughing with Denise from housekeeping and Carl, the security chief. Tyrone paused just outside the door, out of sight, listening. This was why he came early. These were the hours when people said what they really felt. "You see the way that lady in 814 talked to me?" Kyle said, sipping something from a paper cup. "Acted like she belonged here." Denise smirked. "She's the one who came in with that non-profit badge, right? Probably thinks doing charity work makes her better than us." "No," Carl cut in. "She thinks being black and loud makes her entitled to special treatment. These people are all the same." Tyrone's grip on his mop handle tightened. He leaned back slowly, counting to 5. 10 wouldn't help. Denise continued. I made sure housekeeping forgot her request for new towels, told the girls to leave her for last, let her see how equal she really is. They laughed. Tyrone turned away. He passed Maria in the corridor. Her arms were full of linens, her face tired but kind. She gave him a soft nod. Maria, he whispered. You got 5 minutes later? She looked at him, cautious. Depends who's asking. Someone who's watching. She nodded. Come find me after lunch. Upstairs, in the lobby, the day began like any other. Rich guests were greeted with practiced smiles and fresh mimosas. A white couple in athletic wear was handed keys before they even finished checking in. A few steps behind them, an older black couple, Mr. and Mrs. Wallace waited patiently. Excuse me, the woman said gently. We were told we could check in early. Kyle didn't look up. Not for that room tier. But we called ahead. I said no. Tyrone stood nearby, mop in hand, pretending to scrub a spotless tile. He stepped forward. Room 1502 is empty, he said evenly. Kyle snapped his head around. Stay in your lane, Eli. Tyrone stepped behind the desk without asking. Kyle tried to block him, but Tyrone tapped his keycard to the admin console. It unlocked. Mr. Wallace blinked. You work front desk too? Tyrone smiled faintly. Not exactly. He handed them a key envelope. Your suite is ready. Breakfast is complimentary. The couple left, still unsure what had just happened. Kyle leaned in, furious. What the hell is going on? Tyrone's voice dropped. I'll explain, just not to you. He turned and walked off, leaving Kyle standing there, confused and humiliated. Down in the laundry room, Tyrone found Maria loading linens into industrial dryers. You said you were watching? She asked. He nodded. And listening. Look, I've seen what happens here. I'm not who they think I am, and I can help fix this. But I need proof. Not just complaints. Patterns. Maria hesitated. You're not a real janitor, are you? Tyrone met her eyes. No, but I used to be. She didn't ask more. She just reached into her locker and handed him a brown envelope. Inside were copies of emails, handwritten notes, screenshots of texts, photos of injuries, things HR had ignored, or worse, buried. He didn't thank her. He just nodded. Both of them knew what this meant. That night, he sat alone in the converted utility room. It looked like storage. It was actually his command center. Camilla had wired it herself. Multiple screens flickered silently in front of him. Hours of footage, Kyle denying services, Denise berating staff. Carl brushing off a young woman's complaint. And then, at 10:42 p.m., it happened. Maya Reynolds. Alone in the break room, reading a book. Carl stumbled in, holding a beer. He said something, leaned too close. She stood to leave. He grabbed her wrist. It wasn't violent, but it was enough. Tyrone hit pause. The screen froze with Maya's eyes wide, her body tensed. He picked up his phone. Camilla answered on the first ring. You saw it? Yes. You ready? Tyrone stared at the screen. Move the date up. There was a pause. Are we going full burn? He nodded, more to himself than her. It's time. He hung up. The Orion Grand still sparkled outside, but inside this room, everything had changed. The next morning, the storm was already gathering, even if no one could see it yet. Tyrone stood behind a mirror-tinted window in what used to be the hotel's forgotten tech closet. now a fully wired command center. He watched the lobby come alive. Polished shoes clicked on marble, trays of croissants rolled out, front desk smiles sharpened like blades. Everything on the surface was smooth, but the rot ran deep. Camilla arrived 15 minutes after dawn, dressed in a tailored camel coat and carrying a sleek tablet. To the world, she was just another high-end guest, but to Tyrone, she was the system behind the system. "We got it all," she said, handing him the device. Footage, timestamps, backup files in cloud storage. "Good," Tyrone said, "because they're not walking away from this." She hesitated. "There's more." Room 1107. A veteran and his wife. She's in a wheelchair. They called down for help. You'll want to see how it was handled. He tapped the screen. Footage rolled. Denise, stone-faced, received the call, rolled her eyes, and casually hung up. 2 minutes later, she passed the hallway where the woman struggled with her chair. Denise didn't slow down. One of her assistants laughed. Tyrone stared in silence. Camilla crossed her arms. "That's 3 accessibility violations in 2 weeks. 80 would eat them alive." "No," Tyrone muttered. "I will." He changed out of his suit and back into the janitor's uniform. It wasn't a disguise anymore. It was armor. In the lobby, Kyle was already back in performance mode, smiling at a pair of white influencers live-streaming their stay. Across the room, a Latina mother with a shy little girl stepped up to the counter. "Hi," the woman said softly. "We were told the shuttle to the museum was included." Kyle barely glanced up. "It's full." "Oh, but I said it's full," he snapped. Tyrone stepped forward. "That's strange," he said. "The logbook shows 6 open seats." Kyle's eyes burned. "This isn't your department." "I'm not the one lying." Gasps from the nearby guests. The mother looked embarrassed, clutching her daughter's hand. Tyrone didn't blink. "You're still running the same play, Kyle." "But the game's almost over." He turned to the woman. "Ma'am, the shuttle leaves in 10 minutes. I'll make sure they wait for you." She smiled with genuine relief, then left with her daughter, offering a soft thank you over her shoulder. Kyle's jaw clenched, but he said nothing. In the basement laundry, Maya was sorting linens when Denise stormed in. "You shorted towels on 10 again," she barked. "No, I counted twice. If something's missing, maybe it's a system issue." Denise stepped close. "Don't get smart with me. You think being friends with that janitor makes you untouchable?" Maya stood her ground. "I don't think I'm untouchable. I think I'm tired of being talked down to." Denise raised her voice. "You've been skating by since day 1. Maybe it's time someone reminded you where you stand." A quiet voice cut through the hallway. "I think she stands right here, doing her job better than you do yours." They turned. Tyrone. Denise tried to recover. "She was being insubordinate." "No," Tyrone said. "She was being honest. There's a difference." "You have no idea how this place runs." He stepped forward. "I know exactly how it runs, because I built it." Denise stared, confused. But Tyrone walked away before she could piece it together. Back in the control room, Camilla was already waiting. "It's escalating," she said. "Good," Tyrone replied. "Because so is the plan." That evening, Tyrone gathered the night shift crew in the basement storage room. People who never got thanked. People whose names weren't known beyond the punch clock. "I know you've all seen what's happening," he began, "and you've probably been wondering what comes next." He handed out manila envelopes one by one. Each contained a formal invitation to an all-staff meeting. Each had the hotel's logo across the top, and beneath that, for the first time, his real name, Elijah Tyrone King, CEO. The room went dead silent. Then someone whispered, "You're him?" He nodded. "Why the hell were you cleaning floors?" Tyrone looked around at the stunned faces. "Because I needed to know who was actually keeping this place standing, and who was tearing it down." Murmurs turned into claps, then cheers. But Tyrone raised his hand. "This isn't about applause, it's about change. Tomorrow, 12 noon. Main ballroom. Show up like you belong, because you do." He turned to leave, but paused at the door. "And one more thing," he said. "Nobody's getting fired for speaking the truth. Only for hiding it." By 11:45 the next morning, there was tension in the air so thick it could choke you. The main ballroom at the Windsor Grand, normally reserved for fundraisers, black-tie galas, and six-figure weddings, had been transformed. No chandeliers. No string quartet, just rows of chairs facing a stage, flanked by 2 screens and a podium. All staff were required to attend. No exceptions. The email had been cold and clear. What wasn't clear was why. Denise showed up early, her makeup sharp and her attitude sharper. She wore a pearl-studded blazer, her lips painted with the kind of confidence that came from years of unchallenged authority. Kyle was close behind, arms folded, wearing his signature smirk like armor. "This is probably some PR stunt," he muttered as he took a seat in the back row. "Maybe they're bringing in a new corporate trainer." Denise scoffed. "Whatever it is, it's a waste of time." "Nobody from upstairs ever really changes anything." In the front row, Maya sat quietly, head high. She didn't know what was coming, but something in Tyrone's eyes last night told her it wouldn't be small. Behind the curtain, Tyrone adjusted the collar of his tailored black suit. It felt heavier than it used to, maybe because today it meant something more. Camilla was beside him, checking one last time that every file, every photo, every video was queued and ready. "They don't expect you," she said. "That's the point," he replied. She tapped his arm. "It's time." The hotel manager stepped onto the stage first, clearing his throat and offering a tight, rehearsed smile. "Thank you all for coming. Today's gathering is different. We ask for your attention, and more importantly, your honesty." He stepped back. Camilla walked up next, no script. Just presence. Some of you know me, some of you think you do. "But this isn't about me. It's about something that's been brewing for far too long." She turned to the side, nodded once, and stepped back. From behind the curtain, Tyrone walked onto the stage. There was a moment of collective confusion, then murmurs, then stunned silence. Kyle leaned forward, frowning. "That's the janitor." Denise whispered sharply, "No, that's not possible." Tyrone stepped up to the mic. His voice, when it came, was calm, controlled. "Good afternoon. My name is Elijah Tyrone King. I'm the owner of this hotel." You could hear a pin drop. "For the past 4 weeks, I've walked these halls, pushed a janitor's cart, and seen how this hotel really operates. Not from an office. From the ground. I've watched. I've listened. And what I found should trouble every one of us. Gasps and whispers spread like wildfire. I saw hard-working staff ignored, guests dismissed because of how they look or speak. I saw kindness punished and arrogance rewarded. But more than that, I saw who this hotel truly depends on, and it's not the ones in suits." He turned to the screen behind him. Camilla tapped her tablet. The projector flickered to life. Footage played. Denise laughing as she bypassed a woman in a wheelchair. Kyle turning away, the mother and daughter. Conversations in the break room full of mockery and thinly veiled racism. Some staff gasped, others turned red. Kyle's face drained of color. "This isn't about mistakes," Tyrone said, stepping away from the podium. "It's about patterns of cruelty, entitlement, and deep-rooted bias." Denise jumped to her feet. "This is outrageous. That's illegal surveillance." Camilla stepped forward, calm as ever. "Every staff member signed the updated privacy agreement 6 months ago. You didn't read it. You just assumed it didn't matter." Denise turned red. "You can't just—" Tyrone cut her off. "Denise, you told a team to ignore a guest's disability. You mocked others for not dressing like you. You've been reported 4 times. You buried those reports. Now they're not buried anymore." Kyle stood too, hands raised. "Okay, wait. I didn't know who these people were. I was doing my job. You were protecting yourself by demeaning others," Tyrone snapped. "And now, you're done." He faced the crowd. Effective immediately, several staff members are terminated, not for being imperfect, but for being destructive. The room held its breath. "To those of you who have worked hard, who've shown compassion when nobody asked you to, you're the future of this hotel. Starting today, there will be changes. Real ones." Camilla handed out sealed envelopes to the front rows. Inside, promotions, raises, new schedules, and a new staff bill of rights, crafted with input from the very people who'd been overlooked. Tyrone paused. "This hotel has my name on it. But it will only matter if that name stands for something." He started to walk off, then turned one last time. "And to anyone wondering if this was all for show, I've been watching a long time, and now it's your turn to decide who you are when no one's watching." Then he walked off stage, leaving a ballroom full of stunned silence, shaken egos, and hope. Real, crackling, electric hope. The fallout was immediate. By the end of the day, Denise was escorted out through the staff hallway she'd once stormed through with clipped heels and a sharper tongue. She didn't say a word, didn't scream, didn't throw a last insult. But her silence wasn't graceful. It was stunned, like someone just woke up in a world that no longer feared her. Kyle didn't go as quietly. He shoved through the back exit, his face red, his hands shaking. On his way out, he kicked over a supply cart, knocking towels and shampoo bottles across the floor. A junior bellhop flinched, but no one moved to stop Kyle. No one offered a goodbye. Back inside, the Windsor Grand Hotel felt different. There was a hum, an energy, a ripple of change buzzing in every hallway. Some staff whispered. Some walked straighter. Others looked over their shoulders like they'd just survived an earthquake and weren't sure if the aftershocks were over. Tyrone stood in his top-floor suite, no longer disguised, no longer hidden. The skyline of Chicago stretched out in front of him like a promise. Camilla sat across from him, a manila folder resting on the coffee table between them. "It's worse than we thought," she said. "Denise didn't just ignore complaints. She redirected them. There are guest surveys marked urgent, never followed up on. HR memos that were shredded, not filed. A pattern of silence." Tyrone opened the folder and flipped through the pages. He paused at a photo. Maria, the housekeeper who smiled at him, his first week undercover. One report showed she'd been written up twice for taking extended breaks. She had been working double shifts both days. "They used the rules to punish the wrong people," he muttered. "Over and over." Camilla nodded. "We need a clean reset, not just with faces. With culture." Tyrone leaned back in his chair. "Then we rebuild it from the floor up." That afternoon, he left the top floor. No suit. No press team, just jeans, a crew-neck sweatshirt, and that same quiet fire in his eyes. In the staff cafeteria, a few heads turned when he walked in. Some stood, some froze mid-bite. He didn't announce anything. He simply walked over to one of the far tables, where Maritza sat alone, cradling a lukewarm cup of coffee. "You mind if I sit?" he asked. She blinked. "Sir, of course not." He took the seat across from her. "You've been here how long?" 23 years. Started in laundry. Moved to housekeeping when my knees gave out." He smiled gently. "You ever get promoted?" She snorted. "Not a chance." "Ever want to be?" She looked at him hard. "What's this about?" "I'm building a new committee, staff-led, no titles." "No suits, just people who've done the work and know where the cracks are." Maritza's brow furrowed. "You want me on a committee?" Tyrone leaned in. "I need you. Someone who remembers the basement when it flooded. Who knows which kitchens cut corners and which ones hustle for real." "You've seen everything. I trust that." Maritza stared for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "All right. But I'm not sugarcoating anything. I wouldn't want you to." Upstairs, word of Tyrone's plans traveled fast, and not everyone was pleased. Alan Grayson, the hotel's regional vice president and longtime corporate puppet master, was already 2 calls deep before noon. His voice was clipped as he paced his office, tie loosened, sweat beading under his collar. "He's giving janitors voting power? Are you kidding me?" He snapped into the phone. "This is a luxury brand. We don't make decisions based on cafeteria gossip." The voice on the other end, another executive in New York, tried to calm him, but Alan was already spiraling. "If we let this continue, every mid-tier employee is going to think they can rewrite the handbook. This place is not a democracy." "It's a business." He hung up, slamming the receiver down hard enough to make the window behind his desk vibrate. Then he pulled up the board contact list on his tablet. "I'll force a vote," he muttered. "If the CEO wants to play janitor, maybe he shouldn't be CEO at all." Back in the main lobby, Tyrone lingered near the grand piano, an old Steinway, dusty but beautiful. It had been his mother's favorite piece when she worked in the lobby decades ago. He ran a hand along the polished wood and whispered, "You told me to never forget the ground I came from." "I didn't." His phone buzzed. Camilla's voice was low when he picked up. "Alan's planning a board maneuver." "Emergency vote. He's framing you as unstable. Rogue." Tyrone exhaled slowly. "Let him try." He looked out across the marble floor, where bellhops were now helping guests without being barked at, where the concierge counter had 2 new faces, people who actually smiled. "This place finally started breathing again," he said. "I'm not letting them suffocate it." As he turned to leave, Tyrone passed Maya in the hallway. She smiled, and for the first time in a long while, it reached her eyes. "Whatever you're doing," she said, "keep doing it. It's working." Tyrone gave her a small nod. "It's only just begun." By the time the sun rose the next morning, the Windsor Grand was no longer just a hotel. It was a pressure cooker, and the steam was rising fast. Tyrone stepped out of the elevator onto the executive floor, flanked by Camilla. She was dressed sharp as ever, her eyes locked on the tablet in her hands. The tension in the hallway was so thick it seemed to hum. "Alan's called for an emergency board session," she said. "No formal agenda, just labeled it a vote of confidence." Tyrone nodded, jaw clenched. "He's making his move." Camilla didn't sugarcoat it. "And he's not acting alone. Someone inside your circle is feeding him everything. Meeting notes, internal memos, even the restructuring drafts." Tyrone didn't flinch, but something flickered behind his eyes. Betrayal wasn't new to him, but it still stung. "Let them gather their wolves," he said. "We'll meet them in the open." Down in the cafeteria, the rumors were already flying. Alan's name came up again and again in hushed voices and nervous glances. Some workers were on edge, wondering if the changes Tyrone had sparked were about to be rolled back. Others were ready for war. In a quiet corner, Maritza stirred her coffee with more force than necessary. She looked up when Tyrone entered. No words, just a nod of understanding between two people who'd survived too much to be afraid of politics. Across the hotel, Alan was in his office, pacing like a general before battle. "He's reckless," Alan said into the phone. "No respect for protocol. He's throwing around raises and power like it's Halloween candy. We'll lose investor confidence, and if we lose that, the entire empire starts to crack." His voice sharpened. "I want that vote passed tomorrow. I want him out." That evening, Tyrone called a closed-door meeting, not in the boardroom, but in a service conference room that still smelled faintly of bleach and dish soap. Camilla arrived first, followed by Maritza, then Jordan the bellhop, Liana from the kitchen, and Ava, the former front desk supervisor who'd resigned under Denise's reign. Each one took a seat without asking questions. They knew what this was. A war council. Eva broke the silence. "Alan's been whispering in the board's ears for years, promising bonuses, blocking complaints. He used Denise as a firewall." Camilla tapped her tablet. "He's already secured 3 votes. If he gets 2 more, the board can strip Tyrone of operational control." Jordan leaned forward. "Then we take this to the people." Tyrone raised an eyebrow. "Go public?" "We've got stories," Maritza said. "Footage. Records. If the board wants to hide, we shine a light." Liana nodded. "You gave us a voice. Let's use it." Tyrone looked around at them, faces tired, determined, angry. People who had been overlooked for years and still showed up every morning. This wasn't just about a CEO's title anymore. This was about truth. "Then we do it," he said. "Tomorrow." Press conference. Noon. Not in a ballroom. Not in a marble hallway. Camilla's eyes lit up. "Where?" Tyrone smiled. "The loading dock. The one they never let guests see." The next morning, just before noon, the loading dock buzzed with unfamiliar energy. Cameras were being set up. Reporters gathered. Social media influencers circled like sharks, smelling blood and a trending story. Alan watched from his office window, eyes narrowed. "He's staging a circus," he muttered. His assistant poked her head in. "Board members are watching the live stream. They canceled the prep meeting." "What?" But it was too late. Down at the loading dock, Tyrone stepped to the mic. No teleprompter, no PR handler. Just his voice. "I was told this isn't the proper way to lead. That true leadership happens in boardrooms and spreadsheets. But I believe it starts in boiler rooms, in kitchens, in laundry units. It starts with respect." Then he stepped aside. Maritza took his place, voice steady. "I've worked here over 2 decades. No one asked me what I saw, until now." She told her story. Then Jordan. Then Eva. Each voice rang louder than the one before. By the time Tyrone returned to the mic, the press wasn't just filming. They were leaning in. "I didn't come here to expose a few bad apples," Tyrone said. "I came to cut down the whole rotten tree. If anyone has a problem with that, I suggest they step out of the shadows and say it with their chest." The crowd roared. Inside, Alan slammed his tablet down, but his panic wasn't about the speech. It was the notification glowing on his screen. Board session rescheduled, vote postponed pending investigation. His face drained of color. Tyrone's message was loud, and now it was public. The janitor had spoken, and this time Everyone was listening. The boardroom was colder than usual. 12 chairs circled the long glass table like a jury waiting to deliver a sentence. Half the faces looked tense, guarded. The other half, unreadable. At the head of the table sat Alan Brooks, polished and poised, with a thick folder in front of him and a fake calmness resting on his face. He was rehearsing control. "Ladies and gentlemen," Alan began, his voice crisp, "what we saw yesterday was an emotional outburst, not a strategic act. Tyrone may be the majority shareholder, but his behavior is setting fire to the legacy we've all built." Sharon Lynn, one of the longest-serving board members, tilted her head. "I don't recall being part of building a legacy on discrimination and fear." Alan's smile cracked for a second. "That's not what I meant, and you know it." Mr. Hayes, a logistics tycoon, cleared his throat. "Let's not pretend we didn't all see what the press did with that footage. It's everywhere. News, TikTok, morning talk shows, and not a single person is siding with management." Alan forced a chuckle. "Social media thrives on drama. Give it 2 days, they'll move on." Before he could continue, the doors opened. Tyrone King walked in. Alone at first. Then behind him came Camilla, Maritza, Eva, and Jordan, each holding a tablet, each with calm but firm expressions. Tyrone didn't take a seat. He didn't need one. He stood across from Alan and looked around the table. "Good morning," he said evenly. "I won't waste your time with rehearsed speeches. I came to show you the truth, not just tell it." Camilla tapped her tablet. Instantly, the screen behind Tyrone lit up with surveillance clips. Not the ones already leaked, but new ones. Footage of Alan laughing over wine with Denise, mocking the idea of diversity hires. Recordings of private meetings where HR complaints were buried, conversations where board members were warned not to rock the boat if they wanted bonuses. The silence was instant, heavy, loud. Tyrone stepped aside. "You've been fed a narrative that I'm impulsive, emotional, dangerous to the brand. But the real danger," he gestured to the screen, "is right here." Alan rose from his chair, trying to mask his fury. "You're manipulating context." "None of that is fake," Camilla cut in, "because every recording is time-stamped, every transcript verified. And every board member here has just been blind carbon copied the full legal documentation." Alan turned to Mr. Patel, one of his former allies. "You believe this circus?" Patel looked him dead in the eye. "I believe what I saw, and what I allowed. Shame on me for waiting this long to say it." Sharon leaned forward, voice cold. "This board has been complicit, but now, we act." Tyrone opened a black folder and laid it on the table. Inside, a formal motion to remove Alan Brooks from his position as Chief Operations Officer. 11 board member signatures already inked in. Alan's face went pale. "You think this ends with me?" he hissed. "You think pushing me out fixes everything?" "No," Tyrone replied, "but it's where we start." Security entered quietly from the back. Alan flinched but didn't resist as they approached. "You're making a mistake," he snapped. Tyrone met his eyes. "So did you." As Alan was escorted out, silence followed him. Denise, who had been called to the meeting but remained in the back row, tried to slip out unnoticed. Camilla stopped her at the door. "Not so fast." Denise froze. "You were head of HR, the one who signed off on internal reviews and unfounded claims. You're next." Denise stammered. "I didn't know everything." "You knew enough," Camilla said sharply, "and now you're accountable for all of it." Back inside, Tyrone turned to the board. "This isn't revenge," he said. "This is repair, And from this moment forward, no policy, no hire, no promotion happens in this hotel without representation from the people doing the work. The board murmured in agreement. No one looked away. This place isn't changing because it got caught, Tyrone continued. It's changing because it finally has the courage to admit it was wrong. He didn't wait for applause. He didn't need it. As he walked out of the room, the weight that had followed him for years finally began to lift. But he knew the real work had only just begun. Downstairs, word of Alan's removal spread like wildfire. The janitor had just fired the man who thought he ran the world, and nobody cheered louder than the people who'd once been told to stay silent. The sun poured golden light into the atrium of the Windsor Legacy, filtering through the towering glass walls as if the building itself was taking its first honest breath in years. 1 week had passed since Alan Brooks and Denise Holloway were removed. The mood inside the hotel was no longer one of fear or silent tolerance. It was of change, of reckoning, of possibility. Tyrone King stood in the center of the now bustling staff lounge, a place that once echoed with whispers and tension, now filled with conversation and cautious laughter. The vending machine had been replaced. So had the couches. But more importantly, so had the culture. Behind him, a bulletin board displayed the new employee charter. At the top, in bold gold print, "Respect isn't a privilege, it's the foundation." Jordan stood by the coffee machine, proudly wearing his new name tag, Front Desk Supervisor. Across the room, Maritza was training a pair of new housekeeping recruits, her posture as proud as if she were teaching a class at Harvard. Ava had officially returned, this time as Director of Staff Culture, a role Tyrone had created to make sure no voice ever got lost again. Camilla entered, handing Tyrone a tablet. "Final press draft. You sure about going this route?" Tyrone nodded. "I don't want a PR gloss over." "I want truth." Camilla smiled. "Then you're gonna make some people very uncomfortable, which probably means it's the right thing to do." He stepped out into the lobby. The plaque had already been installed by the entrance, etched in black stone with his signature beneath it. "This hotel belongs to those who work, serve, and care. Titles come and go, but dignity is permanent." A group of guests paused to read it, one of them pulling out their phone to snap a photo. Later that afternoon, in a modest press setup near the garden terrace, Tyrone faced the cameras. "Some of you know me as the man who pretended to be a janitor in his own hotel. But I didn't pretend. I remembered. Because that uniform. That was me. That's how I started. And for too long, people in that uniform have been treated like they don't matter." He paused, letting the silence hold. "I didn't fire my staff because they were imperfect. I let go of people who made cruelty a policy, who turned status into permission to disrespect others. We don't do that here anymore. And we never will again." A reporter raised a hand. "Mr. King, is this just a Windsor thing? Or do you hope this spreads?" He smiled. "I hope it burns through every building that ever told someone they weren't enough because of how they looked, where they came from, or what title they carried. I hope it forces leaders to ask themselves what kind of legacy they're really building." That night, social media exploded. Clips of Tyrone's speech were everywhere. Employees shared their own stories under the hashtag #JaLegacyReset. Guests praised the hotel for its transparency. Other companies began tagging Windsor Legacy in their own posts, claiming they were re-evaluating internal practices. But none of it changed what mattered most. Down in the staff hallway, past the break room, Tyrone met Maritza, who stood in front of a framed photograph newly mounted on the wall. It showed Tyrone in his janitor uniform, mop in hand, looking out a window on the 8th floor. The caption beneath it read, "He never needed a title to lead. He just needed to be seen." She looked over at him. You know they call that hallway the Hall of Truth now? Tyrone chuckled. Let's hope it stays honest. You think it'll last? She asked. It will, he said, because you'll make sure it does. Maritza smiled and walked away, her steps sure and steady. As the camera panned out, the lobby of the Windsor Legacy glowed under the soft lighting, but this time it wasn't the chandeliers that shined the brightest. It was the people. People who had once been overlooked, now standing at the center. People who proved that the smallest voices could shake the tallest towers. And Tyrone? He didn't go back to the penthouse suite. He returned to the janitor's closet one last time. Not to hide, but to remember. He placed the old mop against the wall and whispered, "Thank you," before turning out the light. Because justice doesn't wear a name tag. It wears courage. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. These aren't just stories, they're reflections of the world we live in. And the only way to make change is to keep these stories alive. Let's keep pushing for dignity, for respect, and for the voices that refuse to stay silent. We'll see you in the next story. And trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next.